We've got to talk about injuries and roster moves and what that means in the short term and long term on this edition of Locked On Anaheim Ducks.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jason JD Hernandez. I've been covering hockey for over a decade, and I've contributed to Defend the Nest. I'm also the PA announcer for the Coachella Valley Firebirds, who play the games here at Acrisure Arena. And also, been doing this for entering my 5th season with Locked On Ducks. I'm very excited to be back. Very excited, or try to be excited about Ducks hockey as much as I can. If nothing else, I can try to remain as positive as possible. Don't forget that you can get this podcast ad-free on Amazon and look for us on YouTube as well. So check us out on all the spots. All right, let's get started. We've got some injuries that we got to talk about, one of which I mentioned on the previous podcast, and I got to start with, just to mention it again, I'll start with Chase DeLeo because that was a pretty bad injury. Chase DeLeo is going to be out for multiple months with a lower body injury. We don't know how long he's going to be out. Initial reports were 2 months, so the Gulls are going to lose their captain for 2 months. And also, the Ducks lose a little bit of firepower because Chase DeLeo is one of those guys that you can kind of depend on if you really need someone, to get called up. Another injury, this one stinks, so I'm just going to get this out there right now. The Alex Killorn injury is a big one, especially in the short term. It's a big one because he's going to be out for about 5-6 weeks. The Ducks don't have an easy schedule to start the season off, and they could have used someone of Alex Killorn's potential and especially his firepower. He's someone that I think the Ducks are going to miss. They're going to really miss his energy. They're going to miss his scoring ability, and I just needed to look on this. It looks like 5 to 6 weeks. Killorn is making a ton of money this season. Also scored a bunch with Tampa Bay last season. Yeah, you never want to lose someone with that kind of firepower. And the other concerning injury has to do with Leo Carlsson. And this one I just got to look at really quickly. This is a lower body injury that he sustained during practice. Now, according to sources, he went down on a heap, not in a heap, but he went down, could not put any weight on one of his legs, and had to be helped off the ice. There is no timetable for his return. However, we got this quote today from the Ducks that the injury may not be as serious as once thought. So Leo Carlsson might not be out for months. It could be weeks instead. There's, again, still no timetable on Leo Carlsson's return. I think the big hope was that he was going to make the opening night roster, and this was quoted from the Ducks, from GM Pat Verbeek, that Leo Carlsson was going to stay with the Ducks and stay up in the NHL all season long. That's a major, major step for Leo Carlsson. However, with him now being out for a few weeks, it might take him a little while for him to catch up. Might the Ducks put him in San Diego on a conditioning stint on his way back? That's an entire possibility. And I think, honestly, that might be the wise thing to do. Leo Carlsson is a terrific talent. We saw it during parts of the preseason. We know how brilliant he can be with the puck. But in the long term, he is still a young kid. And I could hear some of you out there saying, don't rush him back. Let the kid get his legs, let him rest a little bit. Better yet, give him the proper rest, but let him get some reps in San Diego. Let's see how he does for those few games in that level. We've seen that numerous times with the recent draft picks. Mason McTavish, he got injured during the start of his first year, and he had a few games with the San Diego Gulls, and that helped him in the long run big time. And I think that's going to have to be the route that the Ducks take with young Leo Carlsson as well, is give him a few reps in San Diego, let him have some good reps, let him have, plenty of minutes, or at least quality minutes where he can get useful playing time. And I think that's a big difference there, is you don't want to have someone out there that's maybe only going to get 5-6 minutes, because that's just wasting a roster spot, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on some of the other lines. With Carlsson, give him 15 to 16 minutes in San Diego and then work him up to 19, 20, 21 minutes. That's exactly the course they took with Mason McTavish, and I think that helped him in the long run. So for Carlsson, you have to do that as well. I think the fear right now is that they rush him back. Do they need to rush him back? No. Do they need to give him those reps? Absolutely. Killorn, they probably need to take time with him as well and make sure he's 100% also. So both concerning. I would say it's most concerning on their power play. Power play has been a big issue for the Anaheim Ducks for the majority of the last 5 seasons. They need that firepower right there. They're not going to get it with those injuries taking place. I mean, they have a good first unit, but after that, the depth just is not there. Especially with Killorn out. Killorn's very good on special teams. He's going to be one guy that the Ducks are going to miss for a bit. Okay, we're going to head into the first intermission. I'll talk more about the recalls, rosters, all that jazz. We'll get to that on the other side. First, I want to talk to you guys about FanDuel. That's right. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network, and they have futures. They have who's going to win the Stanley Cup. They have opening night across the National Hockey League, which is tonight. Tonight is opening night in the National Hockey League. So are the Vegas Golden Knights going to come out firing in their first game? How about the Ducks? Their first game isn't until the weekend, mind you. But who's going to come out victorious on that? Of course, you have point projections, higher or lower than the point projections. Who's going to win, MVP? Who's going to be Rookie of the Year? You can find all of that at FanDuel right now. And you can get, your bonus bets back. You can get, I think, like $200 back in bonus bets after you've made your first bet. So check out FanDuel.com/LockedOnNHL to get your bonus bets right now. FanDuel is the official online sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network, and please gamble responsibly. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. You're locked in with Jason J.D. Hernandez, and this is episode, on the audio side, episode number 768. My goodness. Approaching 800 pretty soon. All right, let's get to some recalls and some players that are no longer. And we will start with a couple of deals that happened a couple of days ago. These guys going back to the minors, going back to San Diego. Jackson Weeb, Tyson Hines, Drew Hellison, Trevor Carrick. We expected that. But then after that, Callie Klang, Glenn Gaudin, Nikita Nesterenko, which I'm really sad about, but I get it, and Pavel Regenda. Ooh, okay. I want to talk about those last two, Nesterenko and Regenda. I thought Nesterenko looked really good. I didn't have him on my opening night roster, but I thought he could have been that 22nd or 23rd guy on the roster. He's got a lot to prove, and I think he's got a lot that he can give the Ducks, or I guess now the San Diego Gulls. I expect him to be a key piece in San Diego's offense and could be a key piece on special teams for the Gulls as well, something that they struggled with also. Pavel Regenda, I feel, deserves a better shot. I do think that Regenda can be NHL caliber. I truly believe that. Maybe he'll dominate in San Diego. Who knows? And then these cuts also happened. Noah Warren going back to juniors. We expected that. Robert Haig, who scored the game-winning goal here at Acrisure last weekend, he's down to San Diego. And so is Colton White. I had Haig in my opening night roster. I did not have Colton White. Now, this one I'm sad about, because this was the one that went down as I was recording the first episode. Going back to the San Diego Gulls is Olin Zellweger. Zellweger just, I don't know if he cannot find a spot. I mean, he's a very talented player, and this may have been one of the last cut. I think might have been the last cut. No, not quite, but almost the last cut for the Anaheim Ducks this season. And I truly thought Zellweger had earned his spot with the Anaheim Ducks, but apparently not yet. Zellweger sent down to the San Diego Gulls. The Gulls are going to be stacked this season. Maybe not as good as, I mean, let's face it, not as good as Coachella Valley. Calgary, they're still very good, but they've lost some pieces. There's plenty of other teams that are going to be better than the Gulls, but they're going to be better. They're going to be way, way better this season with a lot of those names I mentioned. But, you know, Chase DeLeo being out, they could be lost very quickly in the season. But Olin Zellweger, I like a lot, and it's sad to see him go. Now, these are the other two moves. Alex Killorn placed on injured reserve, and this one I think is going to make Ducks fans happy. Finally free from the Zach Cashin experiments. Yep, Zach Cashin released from his PTO. I'm going to give the Ducks fans a minute to, you know, revel in their joy. Okay, the Ducks fans have reveled. So Zach Cashin is now out. He's gone from his PTO, so who knows where he winds up. So as far as what that means for the Ducks, well, first off, that means that Zach Cashin won't be on the power play for the Ducks coming up, and they might go young on their power play, because I know they tried some different stuff. They kind of experimented with having Zach Cashin on that first power play unit for whatever reason. They had him out there in last weekend's game here, where he was on the ice for the game tying goal on the 6-on-5. You know, maybe Cashin taught the young kids something. Maybe there's something that the young kids can take away from teaming up with Zach Cashin for those number of games. So I think right now I have Sam Carrick in my roster. With Carlson out, that means he will not be on there, obviously. I had Regenda on open night roster, but that's not happening now. So I think that opens the door for Brock McGinn. That opens the door for Max Jones. That opens the door for Brett Leeson, who I also had on my opening night roster, and someone else that I think can be good for the Ducks and contribute in a big way. Now, I know those bottom two lines do not look nearly as good as the top six, and I know there's already the experts saying the Ducks don't exactly have all the depth in the world. No, the Ducks do have depth. They're just all young. It's young depth. That's something that the Ducks need to be careful with how they bring up. Like, they have to be careful with how they bring up their young players. You know, do you want to bring them up faster? Do you want to bring them up slower? You know, how do you want to deal with the young guys? And we've kind of seen how they were dealt with in the past under GM Bob Murray, and how they've been dealt with now with Pat Verbeek. Verbeek, I think, is going to give them their ample amount of time and try not to rush them, and having the reps in San Diego is going to help. Like, all the guys in San Diego, they're going to get good minutes, especially all the young guys. Like, Zellweger is going to get major minutes. I think, with the San Diego Gulls this season. I look forward to watching him play. I mean, he's going to play here at some point this season. Ducks fans, if you want to see the future of the Ducks, come watch the Gulls versus Firebirds when they come to town here. Those games will be a lot of fun. So check those out, please. But you also have Drysdale back. Whew. Drysdale's in the lineup, thank goodness. Because, yeah, they need him. They need JD in the worst way. The injuries are going to suck. They're going to suck big time. I mean, it's not as many as we've seen in the past, but even losing that firepower sucks. And I could see where the Ducks may have kept cash in, but at the same time, it's probably better in the long run that they just let him go on his merry way. And I think Ducks fans would agree with me on that. All right, we're going to head into the second intermission, tie up some odds and ends, and we'll be back after this brief intermission. Stay locked in. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of TLOPN or Tlopin. I'm your host, Jason J.D. Hernandez. We're still here at Acrisure for now. Opening night for the Firebirds is this weekend. So if you're in the Valley, if you're in Coachella Valley, check it out. Even though I think that game's almost sold out, actually. But, you know, we're going to have a banner. We're going to have a banner here. That'll be cool. Okay. Couple more odds and ends, then we're going to end this podcast. I do need to talk about this opening roster because I have it in front of me. I still have my post-it note. It's got to be Zegras, Henrique, Terry for that top line. And I know the Ducks are still experimenting with Trevor Zegras as center. Now they might have to do that. Because with Leo out for an extended period of time, the Ducks centers down the middle is going to be Zegras, Strome, McTavish, and Carrick. Those are your four centers down the line. You know, Lundestrom, he's going to be back till after the All-Star break. Carlson could be back in a couple months. Or actually, we don't know. We still don't know how long Leo's going to be out. But now it's going to be those four guys. But the last topic I wanted to bring up has kind of been a weird one amongst some Ducks fans recently, is should the Ducks just put Z at wing already? Just do it. Just put him on wing, let him play that position, and do his thing at the wing, and have Henrique be the center. Or maybe move McTavish up, move Strome up. Because Z he's a decent center. You know, he's fine there. But that's not his best position. That's not his natural position. His natural position is the wing. It has always been the wing, especially when he was playing in Boston. Boston University. That was where he was the most lethal. So I would hope that the primary use for Z down the line would be to put him at wing. Because once Leo Carlson and once Isaac Lundestrom come back, then I think it's got to be muy importante to put Z on a wing. That way you could still have McTavish, who is an extremely good center. You have Stromer, who's a very good center. And even Sam Carrick. Sam Carrick is still a very strong center. I mean, good for him that he's going to make the opening night roster. And also good for him that he's getting a fair shot, because I thought Sam Carrick had a terrific training camp and a very good preseason. He showed that he still belongs in the National Hockey League, and that's someone that the Ducks need to utilize in a very, not limited role, but they need to put him in a spot where he can contribute with his 12 minutes on the ice. You know, like, Carrick is a third, fourth line center kind of guy, but he can also contribute big time. And I've mentioned this before. He could be like Nick Dowd with Washington. He knows his role. He knows he's a bottom six. Let him do his role. Maybe put him in a line with Brock McGinn. Actually, I could see that. You know, have McGinn and Carrick on the same line, and they could they could make some noise. I'm not going to say they're going to blow everyone out, but they could make some noise. And maybe one of those guys could get double-digit goals. So, yeah, that's where I am right now with the rosters and the roster makeup. And, Ducks just got to weather the storm for the next few weeks. If they can weather the storm, then I think they'll be okay. Yeah, I'll put it that way. They'll be okay. All right, we're just going to end it now because battery's going to die. I'll be honest here. So we're going to wrap it up right here. But thank you so much for listening. Thanks for watching. Don't forget this podcast is free and available across all platforms, including Stitcher, Spotify, Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc. You could follow me on Twitter, or what was Twitter, at StimpyJD. Show's Twitter's at LO_Ducks. You could email me at lockedonanaheimducks@gmail.com. And once again, thank you all for your continued support. It is so greatly appreciated. For Locked On Anaheim Ducks, I'm Jason J.D. Hernandez, saying have a great rest of the day. Please remember to be safe out there, be kind to one another, and Ducks fly together.